Hey, welcome back to Life After Addiction Indictment, folks. Today, I've got a gentleman by the name of Goodman. He's the founder of Clear Beliefs Institute of trauma-informed therapeutic coaching with graduates in 45 countries. He's had 40 years experience as a transformational coach, healer, and teacher. And today we're going to learn about his methodologies. He deletes limiting beliefs, childhood wounds, and traumas from the past. He's an author of 5 books, including Clear Your Clients' Limiting Beliefs. So welcome to the show, Lion. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. I'm really honored to be here. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about this. As I was reading last night to get a little more familiar with you and what you do, it just is very fascinating. And I'm, really excited to kind of learn more. Tell us a little bit about your background, maybe kind of how you grew up, then what you have done, professionally, and what got you into what you're doing now.
Okay. Whenever I'm asked that question, I always think, okay, how do I synthesize
Yeah.
70 years of growth into a couple of minutes? So it's always a good challenge. I grew up in a family that everything seemed to be okay. We were cared for. Mother and father stayed together. My mother was a little neurotic. My father was, his form of neurotic. He was a shopkeeper, but for some reason, I wasn't connecting with anyone. I wasn't attaching to anyone, not mother, not father, not siblings, not dogs. I mean, I was just alone. And it made me curious, like, what's wrong with me? Because obviously there was something wrong with me. Otherwise, I'd be like all those other kids who would play together and look like they knew what they were doing. So I was out of the crowd and trying to figure it out. And so my figuring it out mind went to work. And so I got interested in things like psychology at a very young age and psychic phenomenon. And I studied these things, reincarnation. I was just fascinated by the human mind. And that fascination continued all the way through college, where I studied everything I could about consciousness and neurology. And in fact, I got my degree in consciousness studies, which was one of the first granted in that field in 1975. So I was an early student of neurology and psychology, and as well as physics and biology. I was just interested in everything. And I was really fortunate to have very, very good teachers who took me under their wing and sort of helped me raise my own consciousness.
Okay.
And that continued even all the way through my adult life, because even when I was a headhunter for 25 years, that was my profession. I was spending weekends and evenings doing shamanic practices and going to workshops and trainings. So I took over 100 workshops and trainings, always to try to improve myself and to try to, and started off as fixing myself because I knew there was something wrong with me. That was my belief, right? Something wrong with me. Eventually I found out that there was nothing wrong with me and never was anything wrong with me. So that was a good belief change. That got me interested in beliefs. And so I began studying them because they seem to be the keystone of psychology. Like when there was a change in me, there was a change in my beliefs. So I started investigating beliefs in depth, and I tried lots of different methodologies. And like all methodologies, some of them worked well, and most didn't. And so then I started asking, well, what makes them work well when they work well, and what makes them not work well when they don't work well? And so that led me to my own insight into what it is that changes and transforms a person from the inside out. And that's what I now teach, is methodologies for dramatic, rapid transformation that's permanent and it sticks. It doesn't change. You don't go back to your old patterns 2 days later or 2 weeks later.
Wow,
so
fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. So because that's much of what you talked about is stuff that really kind of got my attention, that I've been trying to really learn the last several years. Because the subconscious mind is such an incredible thing that affects us in so many different ways, depending on, like you said, the beliefs and kind of programming that we've experienced early on in our life.
I heard your podcast on limiting beliefs. I listened to it. I want to know, what does this guy already know? And you know a lot. So, but there's certain things about beliefs that most people go wrong when they're learning about them.
Okay.
The first is that beliefs are thought of as a mental construct. It's like, oh, that's a concept that I hold as true, and it's all in my mind, and your mind can be changed.
Okay.
Well, the conscious mind can be changed, but the subconscious mind is different than the conscious mind. And the subconscious mind is much bigger and broader, and beliefs are bigger and broader than just mental constructs. They're actually experiential constructs. So a baby, even before they have words, is coming to conclusions based on their experience. So for example, a baby might conclude, when I cry and make a fuss, I get cared for. Now that's a good belief for a baby. It's the baby's figuring out, what do I need to do to survive? And they try lots of different things and see what works. And if a baby isn't cared for when they cry and make a fuss, they may try getting silent and quiet. And then if somebody comes in and takes care of them, then they make the connection. Okay, if I'm silent and quiet, then I get cared for. Now it's a different belief based on the experience, right?
Right.
But experience is multidimensional. It's not just mental, because babies don't have a fully formed cortex yet.
Yeah.
But they do have experience. And so experience is feeling, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, right? It's complete. Plus, it also has to do with our relationships and the energy around us and the environment. And so these are all of the different parts of the self. And because beliefs come from our experience, which is multidimensional, beliefs are multidimensional. They're not unidimensional. They're not just mental. They're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, energetic, environmental. So if you want to clear a belief, if you want to get rid of it, you have to clear it from all those systems.
Wow.
Not just your mind, not just your decision of what you're going to believe. So that's my big breakthrough. That's why my process works so well. And that's why people come and learn it from me, because they can then go and help other people really shift from the inside out, change not just the belief structure, which is core, it's the infrastructure of the mind, but behavior, perception, your life, all of those start with what you believe, and all of them are manifestations of what you believe. So that's my story.
Wow. That's fascinating. I've never even, I know very little, I want to continue to learn, obviously, because to me, it's just so fascinating, because I think we have so much power that we just don't know about, and, or know how to tap into, whatever you want to, say there, but it's something that I think it's really unlimited. It's just, how do we learn how, and obviously you've done a lifelong journey of continuing to ask questions and learn, and you're at a next level and then some, it sounds like, which, is great. What are some of the things that, that you get into, like some of the process?
Well, I'll give you an example, and you and I can do it together, and the listening audience can do it at the same time.
Oh,
just
great.
a small sample of what we do. So every belief creates a feeling or sensation in us. Now, some beliefs don't, like that is a cat. That's not going to create any particular experience. We call that a fact, even though it's a belief. That animal we call a cat, right? But beliefs about ourselves especially create feelings. So I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute, and I want to invite everybody to close their eyes and feel what it feels like to hold the belief, there's something wrong with me. And just try it on as if it's true. Another part of your mind knows that it's not, but try it on as if it's true and feel what it feels like in your body to believe that. And what do you notice, Steve, about what's happening in your body?
I don't know, it was interesting, because I focused on my, what my mind was telling me at first, and it was like, yeah, nothing's wrong with me. But then I was like, no, there's things wrong with me, and I guess if anything, I felt like a little bit, not like an anxiety or anxious mentally, more of like I felt like maybe I was warming up. I don't know if there's a better word to use.
Well, we focus on body sensations because body sensations are really what's in the moment. It's present. It's what we are feeling and experiencing, right? Because
Right.
we can only sense in the present moment. Otherwise, it's memory or future
Yeah, I
projection.
can give you a perfect example of something that does happen. I don't honestly know where it comes from or what's going on consciously or subconsciously, really. But I've always had like social anxiety, which is strange to a lot of people because once I'm engaged with people and stuff, I don't have any problem. So like I could go into a, doesn't matter the type of setting, and I would have like that anxiety, like sweat, if you like. It's not my armpit sweat, just my body, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's try a different experiment. Close your eyes and imagine walking into one of those situations and put your attention on your body, not just the fact that you're sweating is one part, but where do you feel heaviness or pointedness or density or energy moving? Where do you notice that as you imagine that experience?
Just right in here.
All right. And how would you describe that sensation in physical terms?
Like a little heavy.
Okay, so it's heavy. And so so close your eyes again. This is part of the process. And if you took that sensation and put it on a weight scale, how much would it weigh?
I don't know, 4 or 5 pounds maybe.
Okay, good. And if it had a color, what color would it be?
Probably gray.
Okay, so it's 4 or 5 pound gray. And what's its shape and size? You could, in physical terms, if you had a measuring tape, what would be its shape and size?
Well, it's probably rectangular, maybe 10 by 2 or 3, maybe.
Mhm.
Thickness 2 or 3 inches,
Yeah.
10 length,
And
6
height?
in width,
Okay,
2 or
good.
3 inches in height.
Okay, good. So it's a rectangular object weighing 4 or 5 pounds in a gray color. And what's its temperature? Is it warmer or cooler than body temperature?
It's cooler.
Cooler. Okay, good. And is it moving or vibrating in any way, or is it still?
It's pretty still, I think.
Okay, so just allow that rectangular object that's gray and weighs 4 or 5 pounds and is still, just allow it to be there, slightly cool. Just give it room, give it space. And breathe, make sure you're breathing. Always good to breathe. Now, every sensation is like a messenger knocking at our door. And if we ignore the messenger, it knocks louder and louder until it finally gets out a sledgehammer and breaks the door down. But if you open the door and say, what? And they say, oh, I have this message, sign here. You sign, then they go away happy. So put your attention on this object and ask it the question, what message do you have for me? And then listen. It might speak in words or pictures or memories. Just ask it, what message do you have for me?
Okay. Okay.
Are you willing to share what you got?
Sure.
What was it?
You're good enough.
You're good enough. Okay, good. And so ask it now, say, thank you for letting me know I'm good enough. Why do you come when I'm around other people then?
Ask that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't know that I want to go there.
Okay. So but you got
And not that I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I don't care about that. It's a little personal, I think.
That's fine. No,
Related. I mean, I'll be honest,
Yeah, no need to share it. That's fine. Okay. Was it information that you already had, or was it surprising?
I pretty much had it,
Mhm.
and I thought I was pretty clear from it, to be honest with you. In fact, I'll talk about it. I don't give a damn. It's nothing I don't think I haven't mentioned before. The reason I probably didn't want to, because I know I'll get emotional.
Okay, well, it's
I'm
okay
not
with
afraid of
me.
that, and I'm not
It's
afraid
okay
of
with
that.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Just related to my dad.
Mhm.
And I thought that, he's passed. and I don't know what it is, so maybe this will be good. Maybe you and I will talk after, and maybe I'll connect with you on some things. But yeah, it's interesting because let's just talk about it. I don't really care. Maybe it'll
Sure.
benefit somebody. That's why I'm here. That's why I do this.
That's why I'm here too.
Yeah, and he was a very, very successful dentist and also real estate developer. Growing up, he was very busy, gone often. I don't recall him being at many of my baseball games in high school. And he built a full service car wash and gas station detail shop, absentee ownership. And so I started working there when I was a sophomore in high school is when it opened. And I went on a Mormon mission, and after 3 months came home, got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, had a small bowel resection 3 nights after I'm home. And anyway, start working back at the car wash. And at 19 years old, catch the manager stealing. And of course, tell my dad, fires him. Now I'm taking over at 19 years old, which I was in college. I hated school. So I was glad, because then I just dropped out, took unofficial withdrawals, and basically took over, which was very intimidating because I didn't know accounts payable, receivable, all those things. I knew how to operate every area of the facility, from cashier to detailing to, you name it. But it was great for me. And I remember, growing up as a kid and in high school too, being kind of glad he was busy a lot when I wanted to do certain things, because I knew I could always get my mom to say yes. And she used to always kid me and said, "You're going to probably be an attorney when you grow up," So I was, and she said I could, always negotiate with her. But anyway, and it's not that he was hard on me or anything like that. I mean, I'm grateful for the way he was, because he taught me how to work, but obviously then my addiction took over. And he ended up selling the car wash, which I wasn't opposed to, because he had gotten his face beat in and then some. I actually turned it around thanks to a good mentor I had, and he was able to get out of it to kind of heal himself a little bit, even though he lost the ton that he would never recoup. But he was able to get out of it without having to come up money to pay off his debts. And then I was left. I for some reason, I really felt screwed over when that happened. Not because I didn't have a job, because things tend to work out, the way they should, and they did. But I knew how bad that beat him up, mentally and physically. And I don't know.
Steve, did you feel responsible for that?
No, I felt the opposite. I felt like I saved his ass in many ways, and didn't feel like he noticed or cared.
Wow.
I think that's one of the issues. And then, as I look at decades past, as we had kids and my siblings had kids, and we talked about this before we started. I grew up Mormon, woke up to that reality a few years back, but he was never that friend. Even though when I was a kid, I remember he'd always say, "Who's your best friend?" As I was really little, till probably I was 6 or 7, and I always say you. But after that, he never was.
So good. So
even to his grandkids, he was always that preachy, fucking religious, crazy person.
Good. So take a pause and take a breath.
Okay.
Close your eyes and just feel what you're feeling, because this is part of our work, is we find that the beliefs are feeling oriented. If we get to the feeling, we can get to what's underneath it. Okay. There's a belief, a conclusion that you came to along the way, or many conclusions.
Oh yeah.
Way of your father not caring, not expressing friendship, not being there for you. And that produces this feeling. And the feeling is based on the constructs, on the beliefs. So just look underneath the feeling and ask yourself, what do I believe about Dad? What do I believe about myself?
Okay.
Would you be willing to share it?
Yeah. You know, I'll go into everything. So there's things that, I found after he passed that.
Well,
help.
let me ask you to not go into story because in the
Yeah, not right now. I want to give
Right.
some more context to you after.
Okay. But so in our work, we don't spend a lot of time in story because we're looking for
Right.
what's underneath it. What's the core, the cause of the feelings and the construct and the experience out at the surface, right?
Okay.
So what is the belief that you came to about yourself because of this relationship with your dad?
That I was never going to be good enough.
There we go. So that's at the core. Now we've gotten down to the core. Now we take that core into another process that I have to actually clear it out completely.
Okay.
But what we just did was part of the process that I teach of how to go from whatever you're experiencing up here, that rectangular thing that happens when you go into a social situation, all the way down into the subconscious mind where that conclusion lives. I'm never going to be good enough. And because we're young, we don't have sophisticated minds, so we apply it to everything. That means I'm never going to be good enough, period, about anything.
Gotcha.
Even if I'm a great baseball player, that doesn't count because I'm never going to be good enough for dad to come to my games. Even if you're a great businessman and you make a lot of money, well, I make a lot of money, but I'm never going to be good enough to be accepted by those other people who make a lot of money. So I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah, I got you.
Can come from that kind of deep inner decision.
Okay.
And then the next step is to actually use a process to clear it out of the entire system, because it's in the whole system. It's in the body, it's in the mind, it's in the emotions, as we could see and you could feel.
Obviously.
It's even at the spiritual realm, it's at the energetic realm. It's how, when you walk in the room, that's what walks in the room with you. So by clearing it out and having that gone, what would it feel like and be like if you just didn't have that anymore?
Imagine it'd feel great. I'd feel free.
Yeah. And that's what our clients experience after a session.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And I'll be happy to take you through the rest of it after the show. So
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, because what I wanted to, and it's not that it matters because we got to the issue, but this is how deep it is and why it's still there when I thought that it wasn't. When I was in prison, it was very successful before I lost everything. And got a wife, 5 kids. My wife's living in her dream home where it's got the size, the big yard, so that the kids are always around with their friends. Now I'm leaving. Income's gone. Lose pretty much everything. She has to move out 2 months later. And now her kids are always gone. That devastated her. That's obviously a whole nother issue, but my dad would give her $500 a month. And by his choice, I didn't ask him, he did it. I was grateful. She was grateful. And anyway, so and they would send me money and on my books. I get home, years pass, he's getting, probably in his early 70s, redoes all of his financial stuff with his trust attorney. And who I used to have a lot of my business with. So one day he called me, the attorney, and said, yeah, your dad's redoing his stuff and he just wants me to send everybody, the paperwork, shows kind of some of the things he did to help you financially, etc. And I had an idea of where I was at as far as what he had done to help me. But when he sent me that email with the information, when you see a check register with a line item highlighted for interest on a credit card for the money that was sent to you in prison. He's tracking. And he was always like that, but god damn, 25 cents, you're fucking nickel and diming me for? So think of how that made me feel. It obviously made me feel like money's more important to him.
Yes. And there's another belief. Money's more important than I am.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that hurt so deeply.
Yeah.
That I vowed I would never bring it up because I knew there would be nothing positive that could come of it. I mean, that was my belief. And believe it or not, he started to get some slight dementia, and I had to go deal with the situation one morning because he and my mom were kind of in a little bit of an argument because of some medications, and both of them with their issues, and him kind of losing it. He thought he had done something when he didn't. And anyway, so we ended up going, it was New Year's Eve day, and he and I ended up going to Sizzler alone. And somehow this came up. And I don't know why or how, but it came up. And when it did, so much rage hit the surface that I remember holding 2 plates and wanted to just throw those as hard as I could. Of course, I didn't. And we did have a good talk. In fact, I remember getting back with him and him telling my mom it's probably one of the best talks me and Steve have ever had. But he obviously was not there as he used to be, But all those issues, and then just feeling like he was never a friend, and is somebody that could have provided me so much wisdom.
It's a form of betrayal, Steve. It's a form of betrayal, and betrayal from a parent or a sibling or a friend is one of the worst feelings there is. And your rage is appropriate. This is important to recognize. Rage comes from hatred. Hatred comes from being hurt so badly that you feel the need to destroy the person who's hurting you. So the important thing to recognize is that it all makes sense. The psyche actually makes sense when you understand how it works.
Yeah.
And we get to forgive ourselves for having these automatic reactions to the circumstances of our life. This is how the mind works. And so it produces the beliefs at the infrastructure level, it produces the emotions, it produces the mental thoughts, it produces the reactions to people, it shifts our perceptions. So everything you're talking about makes sense from this point of view of understanding what you went through, why it happened. Then the question is, what do we do about it? And there's all kinds of outside in recommendations. Go run it off, go run or exercise, or just forgive, right? Well, you can't just forgive because you're not getting to the source of the material. Or do psychotherapy for a few years and talk it out. That doesn't work. Or hit a pillow with a bat. That's helpful, but it doesn't work. So none of these single solutions work. But when you bring all of the understanding of the psyche together and all the different systems we have, and you find that core piece and you clear it, then everything else clears. It just all disappears.
Wow.
And so that's what I do, and that's what I love. And
the value of what you do is just incredible then, because like I said, I really thought I had let go, and I was obviously it's so deeply rooted. And the reason I thought that maybe I was past it and everything was cool is because to end the story about really the whole dynamic relationship with my father, because he was a good dad. I found a letter like 4 years ago. About 4. My third boy was getting married, and so there was a bin of just a ton of pictures that had been developed. So they were trying to find to give to my sister to make the slideshow for their reception or whatever. And the only thing in that bin with all those pictures was a letter from my dad that I never remember seeing in my life, possibly because I was using the date 1997. And he said, I don't know where it went. Things went wrong, was basically reaching out to me because he obviously knew there was issues and fracture in our relationship. So he told a story of how he ended up becoming a dentist because his mother pushed him to, but he didn't want to be, and he had those resentments. And even though it ended up being good for him financially and stuff, but whatever, that doesn't matter. But so he explained that, and they explained as his dad got older, he would, go to 𝐂𝐭 with him every week, and his dad came back from a trip to California the day before one of the times they were supposed to go to 𝐂𝐭's, and my dad would just go outside of his office, kind of wait on the curb, and Grandpa would come pick him up. Well, he waits out there for like 15 minutes, doesn't ever show, and long story short is didn't change his watch back from the California time, an hour difference. And the reason he explained those things to me was because it took him till he was in his 60s to realize his parents did the best they knew how. So that's the message he was giving to me.
Yeah.
That he did. He doesn't know where it went wrong, but he was just saying, Steve, I was just doing the best that I knew how.
Yeah.
And so obviously that helped, but
it does help to know that. However, it does not help heal the wounds.
Obviously.
The wounds are real. It's sort of like putting a Band-Aid on cancer. Hey, I did the best I could. Oh, okay. Well, thanks. But the wound is still there.
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility to clear out our own wounds, because they come from, your father didn't mistreat you. He didn't hit you with a baseball bat, but his behavior caused you to come to a conclusion about yourself.
Yeah.
And that conclusion may have been one of the things that led you to drug use or alcohol use, whatever your substance of preference was. So addictions, you may know Gabor Mate's work, addictions come from traumas. They're a solution to another problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so if we can find the source of the problem, then the addiction doesn't need to happen anymore, because we've cleared the source. We've cleared
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to mention one other thing, and that is that everybody has addictions. Our brain is addiction oriented because it wants to be efficient. I think you might have mentioned this in your podcast, that the brain wants to be efficient. So it grabs onto things and then uses them to survive. And you may learn something else, but the thing that you learned before doesn't disappear. It just gets pushed down into the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And so we have these layers and layers and layers and layers, tens of thousands of beliefs. And the ones that we learned the earliest are the deepest, and they're the deepest wounds. So by clearing those out, the wounds aren't there anymore. They're healed.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to do all the other stuff that we did to support the belief in the first place.
Absolutely.
And people even people who are clean and sober, right? They have an addiction to their story about themselves.
Oh yeah.
Or their identity about themselves, or their need to get approval, or their need to have sex, or whatever it is. We are addictive animals.
Yeah.
Because of the way the mind works. So by understanding how the mind works and taking it apart and looking at its components, then we can understand ourselves and each other more deeply. Wow.
Yeah, to me, this kind of work, really is invaluable, because I'm not going to profess to say that I know how much this is affecting me and what areas of my life and etc. But it obviously has to be, what those are and what levels and, where it's affecting. I don't know, but obviously addressing something to be able to feel that freedom and release that is something that I'd pay a lot of money for, because life's tough enough. So
It is.
why have to do it and have baggage, even if you don't know consciously it's there, but obviously it's there, you know? So yeah, what you're doing is obviously phenomenal work. So you have your own practice, I assume, is you just
I
work
do.
with
I have my
individuals
own. Yep, I have my own healing practice that I do with people one-on-one. I also offer free events. They're belief discovery events. In fact, we've got one coming up this month. If people want to find out about them, they're free. It's beliefrelief.net. They can sign up.
All right, belief relief.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's a discovery process. Then we have trainings for people who want to clear their own beliefs, and we have coaching programs for people who want to get cleared. With all my trained coaches are available. So
Wow.
it's a great organization, and one of the things that we emphasize is really deep compassion, because when you understand yourself and your own mind, then you can see other people through those eyes of compassion, going, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, now I understand why you are like that. I understand why you're suffering in this way. I understand what's going on. So it's really built on my 45-year study of what the human mind does and how we are as humans.
Yeah, that right there is such a key, in my opinion, to how we could flip humanity overnight, literally. If people could just all realize that, because I don't care who it is, everybody's got shit, you know. Yes, and you know, what level of intensity obviously can differ, whatever, but we all have it, you know. It's just, where did it come from, and you know, what's going on. But man, so were you the founder of the company?
Yeah, I created the methodology, I created the institute.
Wow.
I created the teaching process. The first process actually came from spirit.
Gotcha.
So I had studied lots of other belief technologies, and there was one I liked, but it was very proprietary and you couldn't use it without their permission, right? So I said to spirit, it's like, okay, I want a belief technology that will produce rapid, profound transformation that's fun and interesting and isn't laborious and doesn't take a lot of time, and just, you know, like, give me something really good. And about 2 hours later, this process downloaded into me. It's just like, boom, and I could see the whole thing. And I went, wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder if it works. And I used it on myself and it worked. I started using it with other people. It worked. And I just started teaching it. I said, this is so good. And so that's the foundational piece of my training. But then there's now like 12 different methodologies that are all integrated together, because every individual is unique. You know, you're unique, the next person is unique. So it's not like a one size fits all. All you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
So you can help anybody regardless of
individualized. Yeah, no matter what the issue is. Yeah.
Wow. For those that are listening and might be skeptics to what he just said regarding he got it from spirit, I want, you know, that's a whole nother belief I guess we could talk about. But you know, I am so in tune with that kind of situation, meaning I believe, you know, we're spiritual beings. And I know that when I was in my addiction, obviously something like that could even be something, major walls are going to go up, you know. I don't think so much with me, but, you know, a little bit, because of feelings I've got about what I'm doing, and which is contrary to what I truly believe, to be able to connect, you know, to where I had a story about that. And I actually remember, and give credit to my dad for this, walking out of, you know, I did aftercare when I got sober, and my family could come, and I mentioned this on a few podcasts, and walk into the car one night after the family night where they could come for the 4 hours, you know, walking with my dad, somehow prayer came up. And I said, no, I've been praying, you know, why is anyone going to listen to me, you know, when I'm doing all this bullshit? And, you know, he said something I truly believe, but when you're using, you don't believe like that. He said, Steve, as your father, think about your heavenly father. Like, he's always there no matter what you're doing. So, and when he said that, man, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that's the time that I need to be going, you know, over it when everything's good. Not that, and you should always, I just believe that obviously that's something that could always benefit you regardless. You know, for those don't believe in God, that's fine too. But whether you believe in energy, source, whatever, you know,
Doesn't matter
That
what
stuff's
you call
real. Yeah,
Yeah.
that stuff's real. You can call it spirit, you can call it energy,
Yeah.
which is all we are. And it's just, I don't know. Yeah, that's such a topic that fascinates me too, that, all this stuff does. And, I appreciate you, taking me through that, even though neither one of us anticipated that. But like I said, both of us agreed I was willing to do it, knowing probably how I would respond, because if it just helps one person to find you, it's worth it to me.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I appreciate the depth of your inner work.
Yeah, because I do this 100% just to help somebody.
It is an incredible gift that you give, to be so present and so vulnerable and so real, because it allows other people to say, maybe I can too. Maybe I can.
I hope so.
vulnerable. Maybe I can look into myself. Maybe I can learn something new. Maybe I can change. So I see it as an incredible gift that you're giving to the audience.
I appreciate that. That's why I told you before we started recording, I don't do this to get paying clients that I can go help and consult or whatever you want to call it, because I always struggled, even though I know we all have to make a living, and I have no problem with that. But I'd stop in the middle of the day for anybody that needed help with addiction or whatever else issue, even if it's freaking my enemy, frankly. Hopefully I don't have any, but I mean, that's how deeply I feel about this stuff, because how it controlled my life and how I'm so damn lucky and grateful to come out with a family intact. I didn't have near the wreckage that most people do from addiction or alcoholism. And so, if just one person, it helps them, then it's worth doing this every week.
Absolutely.
For the rest of my life, and having people
believe-
like you come on just provides so much more value. So it's just, I appreciate it.
Well, I believe that we are all here to serve others, not just ourselves. We have an ego, and the ego is important to serve. We need to feel comfort and safety and have enough and all those things. That's important. We're not trying to get rid of those things. We're not trying to get rid of our ego, because we have an ego until we're dead. Then we don't have an ego. But the ego needs to be managed by a higher power, by a higher self, that says, this is what I want in life, and I want to create that. That's the creator self. The ego is basically the reactive self. It's like we're reacting to this based on all that programming. And so the more elevated we can get into the creator self, when you're asking yourself the question, what do I want to create in my life, and how do I do that? Then you're operating out of the conscious self rather than the subconscious self. And most people operate most of the time from their subconscious programming. It's a very large percentage. I used 97% as a kind of guesswork based on my understanding. And so 3% of our time and 3% of people are operating at the conscious level, choosing and creating what they want. And it's possible for all of us, because that capacity is within us. It's just that, the question is, who's driving the bus? And if the protective ego or the addictive ego or the hurt, wounded child is driving the bus, life's going to be harsh, and it's going to keep producing more problems than it solves. If the higher self, if God is, influencing you, whatever you believe is above you and outside of you and bigger than you is driving the bus, then you've got a chance to get where you want to go.
Amen to that. All right. Well, a couple of things to wrap up, because we also talk a lot about, business and entrepreneurship, so that, those maybe who are stuck, as they break through and, reclaim their life, by adjusting their mindset and going through some of the stuff that you're so good at. We also talk entrepreneurship. So you mentioned was it a headhunter for 25 years?
I was. Mm-hmm.
So how was it shifting from that to then creating your own business?
I worked for other people for how long? 10 years or so. And there's something about working for others, as you were talking about working for your dad, and that builds your capacity to serve someone else's ideas.
Yep.
But headhunters are kind of entrepreneurial because I made my own book of business. I had to make
Gotcha.
50 to 100 calls a day on the phone to create the business that I wanted. So it gave me the sense that I can create anything. If I needed more money, just make more phone calls.
Yep.
That's how I
So
figured it
true.
out. And then I got fired twice from 2 different companies within a 3-month period. And I figured out, wow, it takes a lot of creativity to be fired twice in 3 months. But it forced me to start my own business. I had a 4-month-old baby at home, and I went from being a salaried employee to having nothing.
Yeah.
So I got in gear,
Up to
got
you.
in gear and said, okay, I'm going to do this myself. And that was my start. And then I brought other people in. I built my own practice. And so I was an entrepreneur for a long time. And
Gotcha.
when that business went down the tubes with the dot bomb bust, then I was kind of lost. And I said, what now? And my girlfriend at the time said, why don't you be a coach? And I said, I don't know anything about coaching. She said, of course you do. You've been coaching executives for 25 years, and you've done all this self-development work. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm going to give you my clients. And I went, oh, okay.
Wow.
So that's how I got started coaching. And
That is so cool.
I didn't get my credentials until like 10 years later, but I just started doing it. And it's like, this is what I was built for. So I really fell into.
You're definitely built for it, because I think, I've never been exposed to anything like that you've talked about and we've gone through that obviously has an impact, that, geez, if addicts and people, anybody that's got issues, that's because like you said, when we're abusing things or addicted to certain things, there's obviously an underlying issue. I was numbing obviously feelings out for certain things. But I think when it comes to like the entrepreneurial side and stuff, what you just said and what you went through is so important for people to understand that, you might be at a point in your life where you still need to look at, working for somebody as like that stepping stone to help you get to where you truly want to go. Oftentimes we're so focused on thinking we got to get to where we want to be tomorrow that you don't realize sometimes it is a process, and that process is going to make you so much better at, where you're going to end up. Because you obviously, by doing what you did for most of your life, put you in a position to be able to have things fall in like they did, and to be able to then, obviously I believe you're called to do what you're doing, because if you had that download the way you did, let's be real, that's just, to have the impact that I'm imagining you have, it's got to be just massive. And I think that that's, anything we can do to help humanity, I'm all for.
It's also important to recognize that entrepreneurship is hard.
Absolutely.
And it's fraught with difficulty, and there's lots of traps you can fall into. And I've made more mistakes than, I should have. I've lost huge amounts of money. I've kept people on because I love them instead of, even if they weren't productive. I've made all the classic mistakes of an entrepreneur, and I've got a staff now, but even, managing staff, I was never trained to manage staff.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to learn how to do that. Right. So it's a constant learning process, and nobody knows how to be an entrepreneur at birth. It's a learning process, and the learning is often hard. And there's a concept called principled subordination. And that's where you agree to subordinate yourself to another person, for a mentor, a teacher, a boss. And you do the best job you can for them, even though they're getting the benefit. Because you're learning something from that relationship, from that higher to lower relationship, like teacher, student, parent, child, boss, employee. Those are really important lessons. And when you consciously make that decision rather than grumbling about it, I have to work, then that becomes a learning opportunity instead of just a drag that you have to do every day.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, perspective creates possibilities. If you can have that perspective, that's going to help you end up with possibilities that can be endless, really. Well, man, Lion, I really appreciate your time. Is there any final words you want to leave before we wrap this up?
Well, my final words usually are something like this. If you want to change something in your life, change your beliefs. If you want to change your feelings that you're having, find out what the beliefs are that are producing the feelings and change your beliefs. If you want to change your circumstances, change your beliefs so that you can handle your circumstances better. So for me, the beliefs are at the core of everything in our lives, from social interactions to environmental things going on. We have to have social action to change the world, right? We can't do it just inside ourselves. So there's both the inside job and then there's the outside job. How to be a family member, how to be a parent or a better child or a better sibling. So a better friend, right? So there's an inner and there's an outer, but if we start with the inner, then the outer will take care of itself. It will shift to make life better. So I invite people to join my free monthly programs at beliefrelief.net. You can find me at liongoodman.com. And if you're interested in learning how to do this with other people, my website for the training is clearbeliefs.com. Awesome.
That's great. And folks, I'll have those links in the show notes, as well as some of his other social media links. If you feel like you got value out of this show or previous shows, if you jump over to Apple and give us a 5-star written review, we would appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Appreciate your time, Lion. This has really been valuable for me, and I hope for many others that will hear this as well. And I look forward to bringing you back and maybe digging into this a little deeper.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Have a great day.